Hi, it's Coach Laura with Outdoor Beginner. Today's video is all about what goes on our feet, running shoes. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about basic shoe anatomy, what to look for when you're buying shoes, and also how to advocate for yourself as a beginner runner in running specialty stores, which can admittedly sometimes be intimidating. In addition to being a coach, I also work at Runner's Roost in Golden, so please let me know if you ever want to come by for some personal shopping or if I can answer any other questions about running stores or running shoes and gear for you. So first, we're going to talk about running shoe anatomy. There's a ton of vocabulary that gets thrown out there with shoes, and we're going to start with what the different parts are. So the bottom of the shoe, this darker uh, rubber here, is called a rubberized outsole. The white foam that you can see on the bottom that then wraps around and gives your foot all that nice cushion, this is the midsole of the shoe. This is generally where the magic happens with any sort of cushioning. The rubberized outsole is what makes the shoe more durable and also gives you more traction when you're running. The next part of the shoe is this entire fabric part that's covering and hugging your foot. It's called the upper. It's easy to remember because it's the uppermost part of the shoe. But what you're looking for here is different breathability, how it hugs your foot, the support that it's giving you in the heel collar, which is this part here, as well as the shape of the toe box, which is this part where your toes are going to be. So beside cushioning and the amount of cushion that's in the shoe, there are another few options for different design choices that you want to try out when you're going to the store. So you've got on this Hoka shoe, the one on the left, you have a little bit more plush upper here. You can really see how thick the padding and foam are around your ankle. The tongue is nice and padded. Whereas this Brooks shoe, the purple one on the right, is a little bit more streamlined. You might like that if you have just a little bit lighter weight feel, if you don't need as much support. So you can see here the tongue is a lot more streamlined. It's probably just a single layer. And you can also see around your ankle, there's less cushioning. And just like with cushioning under your foot and everything that I'll talk about with shoes today, a lot of it is personal preference. I know we all wish there was the magic bullet of shoe that would make us a faster runner, would make running easy, and would prevent us from ever getting another injury. But that's just not the case. So trying on lots of different types of shoes and figuring out what you like for your body is the best way to go. Moving over to the bottom of the shoe, you can see that some shoes have a lot of the rubberized outsole, like this one is pretty much fully rubberized except for this small cutout where you can see the midsole white foam here. This shoe is going to be a lot more durable. It's also the standard on most shoes. It gives you a bit better traction as well. But on lighter weight shoes, they'll sometimes cut out a lot of the rubber and just keep it in these really high impact zones, like where your toe is, where you should be pushing off, and where your heel is, where many people land as they're running. So again, there's not a right or wrong, it's simply personal preference. This shoe might be a little bit less durable, but it's also going to feel a lot lighter. And if you're not running in the rain or ever on trails, then you'll have plenty of traction in a shoe like this one on the left as well. So just like with the upper and the outsole, there are lots of different options for the amount of cushion that you're getting in a shoe. This shoe is called the Brooks Ghost. It's a super popular, kind of beginner-friendly daily running shoe, and it's got what I like to call like a Goldilocks amount of foam. There's not a ton, but it isn't a minimalist shoe either. It's got kind of just the right amount. Generally, you can try in the middle of the road, but there's plenty of other options, whether this feels too bulky to you or like not enough. The next part of the shoe we're going to talk about is the toe box. So this part up front, in front of the laces where your toes are going to be. Now there are a ton of different widths of toe boxes and designs. So there's the more traditional tapered design like this one at Brooks, or a more squared off or roomy design like this Topo shoe, as well as Ultra is another brand that are famous for their more squared off toe boxes. It can definitely help to really give your toes room to splay out. Your big toe is where a lot of your forward propulsion is coming as you're running. So giving your feet enough room so that your big toe stays aligned and straight when it's in your shoes instead of super scrunched up will not only help prevent bunions and other issues like that, but help you have just a more comfortable running experience. I wouldn't rule them out if you have narrow feet, and I wouldn't say that you only need them if you have wide feet. Again, it's just another design element to consider and either try a taper toe box and a wide toe box and just see what feels good to you. Another term that you might hear frequently to describe types of shoes is the heel drop or drop of a shoe. That's referring to the difference in the amount of foam in the back of the shoe under your heel versus in the front of the shoe. Brooks is a good example of a shoe with a drop because you can really see how much thicker the foam is under your heel versus in the front of the shoe. So there has been more of a movement lately toward lower drop shoes, which means that the amount of cushion in the back is a little bit more balanced. So you have either almost the same or the exact same amount in the back as in the front. Those types of shoes are called a low drop shoe. And the thinking behind that is to take some of the force out of your knees and hips that's created by running. But the important thing to keep in mind is that you can't get rid of that force. It's just moving to a different place. So instead of having most of the force of running be distributed to your knees and hips, you're getting it distributed to your calves and ankles. So that does put, for low drop shoes, a bit more stress on your calf muscles, your Achilles tendon, and your ankles. So heel drop is another thing that's highly individual, and I encourage you to try a couple different kinds. But if you have any existing Achilles tendonitis or other issues, as well as a history of calf strains or other calf issues, I would suggest trying to start in a higher drop shoe. Another term that you might hear a lot about when it comes to running gait that impacts running shoes is overpronation or pronation. Pronation is a natural part of your gait cycle where your ankle is leaning or collapsing. Makes it sound bad all the time, and it's not. But your ankle comes just inward as you're landing to help absorb the impact of running. Let's take a look at a quick video example. Well, first of all, this is how I found out my driveway is not very level. But let's take a look at this video that I took of myself running in slow motion to get a better idea of what exactly pronation or overpronation are. So as I take off and then land, you can see that my ankle has come in just a little bit here. Whereas where on the other side, it's actually pretty straight up and down when I land on my left foot. So it's not uncommon to have, different levels of pronation in your left and right foot. These are also trail shoes, so they're a lot more stable and stiff. But that's what we're talking about when we talk about pronation and overpronating, is the degree to which your ankle is collapsing in as you run. For a long time, there was a really widely held belief that any degree of pronation was bad, that overpronation was absolutely bad no matter what, and it needed to be controlled and corrected. Now we know that it's just as harmful potentially to overcorrect and restrict natural motion as it is to correct excess motion. It can also be potentially damaging or at least unnecessary to be correcting over motion or overpronation that isn't actually causing you any harm. If you're having injuries or pain and you've been told by a physical therapist that overpronation is likely an issue and you do need corrective shoes, then you can consider stability shoes, which are shoes with different technology and different elements in them to kind of control or correct that excessive motion. There's a lot of different kinds of stability shoes, especially as we've realized that restricting all motion is not something we want. We really want to be able to allow your foot to move naturally without having any excess motion. So there are several different takes on stability shoes now. First, let's look at Brooks, which is their GTS technology. So the Adrenaline is their classic stability shoe, but you can actually get the GTS version of almost any shoe that they make. So the GTS technology is this extra foam here that you can see that kind of wraps around the outside of the shoe, which is a unique feature. A lot of stability shoes only focus on the inside of your foot, since that's where people are typically pronating. You can really see in some of these other pictures that it then wraps around into the middle of your foot. So this black piece here is a more firm piece of foam as well to, again, prevent overpronation. I do like Brooks' approach because, like I said, it wraps around the entire shoe, which you can see here. Another option that is a bit more of a traditional take is from Saucony. So you can see here this rigid plastic clear piece here. So that's going to, again, provide some pretty significant support. It's going to feel a lot firmer and really prevent a lot of overpronation. You've also got this extra loop for the laces that helps lock in your foot, and this foam underneath the plastic piece is also denser. One last take we can talk about is topo. You can see this dark teal plastic here is a cup that goes around the entire foot. So you can see it kind of wrapping around your heel as a really mild excess motion control. It's important no matter where you go to try to go in person at a running store so that you can try on a lot of different kinds of shoes. Like we've talked about, there's a bunch of different options, whether it's how much cushion there is, how much rubber there is on the outside of the shoe, how the upper fits, whether it's stable or not. And these are all things that it kind of is hard to know what you like, especially when you're starting out. So being able to try on a couple different types of shoes, running in them in the store, and then taking them out on your own to make sure that they still feel good is going to be your best bet. Running store employee might or should ask you what size you are, or they might want to measure your foot. The reason for that is that typically running shoes are going to run at least a half size bigger because you want a little bit of room in front of your toe. So you should have, it's the rule of thumb, literally, you should have at least a thumb width between the end of your longest toe and the end of the shoe. You don't want to be bumping up against it. So don't be afraid of sizing up a half size or even sometimes a full size, depending on how tight your everyday shoes are. Once you let them know your size, they're probably going to ask you what kind of running you do or what kind of shoes you're interested in. It's totally okay to say, I don't know. I'm a new runner and I want to try a couple different types of shoes to figure out what I like. I know that running stores, and I say this as someone who works at a running store, can definitely be kind of hit or miss in their level of support for beginner runners. I hope to keep working to change that. It's also the reality of going into a running store that you need to be able to advocate for yourself, right? And you have every right to go to a running store and be helped and have your questions answered. So don't be shy about telling them you don't know, but be firm about what you do want to try. So, it's easy to tell them, I'm a beginner runner. I'm just starting out. I want to try a couple different types of shoes. I typically run walk about 4 to 5 times a week or less, whatever you're actually doing. This is how long I run time wise and mileage wise. The running store employee should also ask you, and if they don't, please tell them about any injury history that you do have, because that's helpful for them to know what kinds of shoes you might need, whether they need to look at stability shoes with you, whether you need a higher drop shoe, if you have, history of Achilles tendon issues, all of those kinds of things. On a shoe, you do want to make sure to actually put both shoes on, lace them up all the way, and run in the store with them on. You can either run around the store or ideally they should have a treadmill that you can run on because your biomechanics are different when you're running versus walking. And I've tried on plenty of shoes that felt great to walk around and felt terrible to run in. So you want to make sure you do both and to be able to give the employees some feedback on what you are or aren't liking. So that can be something as simple as, this foam feels too firm or too soft. I feel like this is too bulky. I feel my heel slipping. Anything like that, you want to let the employee know so that they can rule out that shoe and kind of help figure out what the next best shoe might be. And it's just as helpful to figure out what you don't like as it is to figure out what you do like. And remember, your preferences are valid. Even if you're a beginner, it doesn't matter. You are there to be helped, to be welcome into the running world. And if you're not getting that experience, it's okay to leave and try to shop somewhere else. Again, if you ever need help in person and you are in the Denver metro area, I'm happy to help when it comes to shoe shopping. I know you already got shoes through Newton, so if you want to stick with them, awesome. But if you do branch out or decide to get multiple pairs of shoes, I hope that this video is helpful to kind of get you where you need to go.